People have different priorities when they're younger. They spend their cash on other things other than pension. And of course, it seems a million years away until it actually knocks on the door. The stakeholder pension scheme, that was introduced by the government. Every employer had to set one up. We didn't have one single uptake of that. Again, it just didn't work. It wasn't attractive enough. And again, pension time seems an awful long way away. We now have a workplace pension, which all employers have, and these provide for contributory, employer and employee, and it's phased in with a minimum of 2% in the first year, 5% and 8%, and that's the employer minimums of 3% and 5% by the time we get to year 3. Now, again, hopefully that will provide comfort to some who have to find a rent when they do retire. But I just saw in the financial papers on Sunday that the rule of thumb is that you should divide your, and again for the younger ones here, divide your age by 2, and that should be the percentage that you save for your pension scheme, your savings for your retirement. Now that's quite a substantial amount. It's, for the 20-year-olds, it's 10%, but as you get onto your 40s, it's 20% and so on and so forth. So it's just as a rule of thumb, but if you want to have a relatively comfortable retirement, those are the sort of percentages you need to save. So again, previously, estates acted as the housing provider, but now, of course, the local authority are there. You've all paid your stamps, you've all paid your tax. There is, as a fallback, and no one likes to ask for charity, but there is the local housing allowance that is available to those in need. Of course, it's means tested, but it is available. The younger members who are here, again, there is still time to make provision for a pension in retirement. And I would stress that hopefully the Borders College do actually do something on this, but saving and pensions, it does arrive fairly quickly, and it comes at you like a steam train. So finally, I'd just like to, again, echo everyone's thoughts that the Gamekeepers Welfare Trust is a fantastic organisation. It's helped employees or retired keepers on the estate I'm on, and the simplest thing of putting a shower in can transform someone's life. Again, keepers don't have any rental history, so when they do go onto the rental market when they retire, hopefully the Gamekeepers Welfare Trust can offer loans for deposits. Again, a deposit needs to be found plus the first month's rent, and that can often be about £1,000, and it's not easily found. And they can also help with financial difficulties. And I think the other thing that I've picked up on is communication. If you do have problems meeting a rent or finding a deposit, there is always someone there to talk to. It's the Gamekeepers Welfare Trust, and factors aren't the ogres they're made out to be. Talk to the factor. If you're uncertain as to what your expectations are when you retire, do I expect to get a free house? Is that a reasonable expectation? Discuss it with the factor, because the sooner that fact becomes known to you, the sooner you can make provision. So all I would say is communication, and do save for the future in terms of pensions. Thank you.
I've lived in tied housing since the 60s. And I worked for the landowner I've always worked for a landowner up until 1986, when I went to work for a man who released the shooting rather than owned the land. I worked for him for 17 years, and after 17 years there was a tragedy in his family, and he rang me that night and said, "I'm stopping the shooting, I'm going to make you redundant." Now my wife and I had a plan. I had 6 years to retire, and we had a plan what we were going to do about housing, but we were 6 years short. The guy that took the shooting after my boss gave it up didn't want a 60-year-old man, he wanted a younger man, so I was out of the job. I lost my sense of humour then. Finding a suitable house, you know, they give you the time. I was rung up on April the 1st, and asked when I could be at the house, how quick I could be at the house. I'd never given it any thought, And I thought then, even if I had £250,000 in my hands, I couldn't be out by the time the gentleman wanted me out. It wasn't possible. Finding a house isn't easy. Finding a suitable house is hard. I went to the local council, and my 2 daughters had left home by then, and what I was offered was a 1-bedroom flat. And I had 3 one-bedroom flats to choose from, and if I didn't take the 3rd one, that was it. They couldn't help us. I lived in a 4-bedroom house, and we'd expanded over the years. And like I said to the guy, I've got 30 hens, 6 dogs and a horse. 1-bedroom flats, not suitable. However, I did find a house. There was a farmer friend of mine offered me an old house, and we stayed there at a very reasonable rent. I was very, very fortunate to get this, but I still had to get rid of a lot of stuff that was ours. It was your possessions. You can't. I mean, if a 1-bedroom flat, you can't fit a 4-bedroom house into a 1-bedroom flat. So you've got to decide, and we had to decide what we wanted to keep and what we didn't want to keep. And this is all practical stuff, but at the same time you have to deal with the emotional stuff. It was the longest place my wife had ever lived. My daughters had grew up there, and you've got to deal with that at the same time as all the practical stuff. So we moved to this first house, which was more suitable than a 1-bedroom flat. Most annoyingly, when I got there, the friend says, well, where's your horse, where's the dogs? Well, I got rid of most of my stuff because I didn't think I'd be able to keep it. We were there for 18 months. My wife worked, which was a good thing, so my wife became the breadwinner. And we were fortunate enough to be able to buy a house, a suitable house, where I keep dogs. It was a relatively rural area, and we've been there ever since. What I didn't know about was the JWT, and it would have been nice to be able to ring somebody up and get advice, or just have somebody to talk to. We really did need advice. You get advice from all sorts of people when this happens, and opinions, but unfortunately opinions are like belly buttons. Everybody's got one. It doesn't make them any very valid. And what you really need on the emotional front and on the practical front is good practical advice from somebody who knows who they're talking about, who knows what they're talking about. And I just wish that I had the JWT to talk to at that point in time. So, like it's already been said, we're not all going to get a house to retire to. So the younger members that are here should have a plan, and hopefully that doesn't get cut short by 5 or 6 years. But I think we should make a plan for the future, because we can't rely on what happened in the past with tied housing. It's just not going to happen in the future. So we need a plan for that. And again, Keepers Welfare Trust will be there to help you, I hope. That's it.